Well, welcome to this Monday. It's Talking Derby, and needless to say, given the title, we are going to be discussing all matters Derby. I'm joined by Tommy Lyons, an exiled dub down in County Cork, and Mert, who I'm surprised isn't wearing his retro Kerry jersey down there in County Kerry. It's great to have Mert on, of course, discussing all matters. We may even discuss the Dubs' drive for 6 in a row this year in the All-Ireland title. But before then, a great weekend's action in the Derby. Some really standout performances. Tommy, what stood out for yourself?
Well, I think it was nice to see that New Taylor posted a time that was close to what Bastana did last week and kind of up there with the very best. And it kind of gives you the impression that maybe there will be a clash. If there is a clash amongst them, maybe semi-finals, maybe in the Derby final itself, that we'd have something to really, really look forward to. That Bastana is exceptional. New Taylor probably, we can talk about sectionals later, and he mightn't have the strength to win the Derby. That last 25 yards is quite testing for him. But it's just, there are so many dogs between the 29.10 and now the magic 28.99 figure that we've got pretty good stuff in over the next 2-3 weeks.
Of course, Mert, you're the biggest supporter there can be of all the Kerry-based greyhounds, and it just so happens that over the last few years, the all-conquering Liam Dowling Kennel has been providing most of them. A strong challenge for him, of course, but what for you has been the standout performances thus far, and very impressed with Saturday night, I'm sure.
Yeah, very impressed with Saturday night, Ian. Pastana, you just got to love this greyhound. I mean, a class act. He doesn't run like College Causeway, obviously, because he pings the leads. College Causeway used to come from behind, but he is an exceptional greyhound, and I think it's going to take an exceptional greyhound or a bit of bad luck to beat him if he continues to break like he's breaking. 332 sectionals, exceptional. Most of the other contenders are 340, maybe 340 plus, and some of the others are 350. So he's got a couple of lengths already by the time he reaches the winning line first time round. I'm impressed by New Taylor, obviously, but I'm also impressed by Ballymac Wild. I know it's a bit parochial, but I think Ballymac Wild, ever since I saw him running in the Juvenile Classic in Tralee, which he won at a crazy price of 8-1, in that was Glengar Bale, who was knocked over at the opening bend, and also Dearjet Sydney was in it, and there was one of the other greyhound, is it Deadly Missile, went out the last night. 4 were in from that Juvenile Classic, which often throws up a good one like Ballymac Matt in 2015. And I think Liam has a lot of confidence in Ballymac Wild, and I was impressed the way he ran the last time. I think he's ideally drawn in the quarterfinals. So Ballymac Wild for me is the wild card in this derby, if you want a kind of phrase, and I think he's going to run very well. Obviously, Ballymac Cooper is one that hasn't been getting away, but you must remember last year he was injured, missed the best part of 6 months. 3 months he did absolutely nothing, and then did some gentle work, and to come back like he has, I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. And also, of course, Glengar Bale, I think, for Pat Buckley, lightning quick away, and if he can avoid trouble, he's one that you've got to take in. I was impressed by him last Saturday night, definitely.
Of course, one dog we have to mention that made his exit on Saturday night was Lenson Bocco, the defending champion. It means that that no dog that made the Derby final last year remains in this year's Derby. Lenson Bocco just wasn't quite up to himself this year, Tommy. Just looks a yard or two off the pace. I know Kevin Hennessy alluded to it on Saturday night. He says it can happen. Dogs just run in and out of form. He had a long layoff, came back, showed a bit of promise in the semi-finals Champions Stakes, but could just never put his best foot forward this year.
Yeah, it kind of makes you appreciate it maybe a bit more when you see greyhounds coming back year after year and performing, because as you said, you can drop it, you can lose a length, and all of a sudden you're not a Derby dog anymore. I mean, we also have to think that 6 runs takes an awful lot out of the dog to win a Derby. He was fantastic last year. He was absolutely brilliant. I mean, he was made to dig deep. I mean, remember that final? It was a fantastic final. There was nothing in it in the end. He put everything out on the track that night. Like, it's not. I don't know what the issues have been, or whether it has been one, or whether it's just taking a bit out of the dog. But I mean, you know, the fact that he got knocked out this year, that doesn't mean much in terms of his legacy. He was a fantastic dog. To me, I always say you get one chance to win a Derby. By the time you come back the second time, the chances are the new kids on the block have stepped up, and they're asking more and more questions. You know, if you arrive at a Derby at your peak, some dogs, okay, you can come early, you might be too young, maybe just turning 2, and maybe your 3-year-old season is the right time for it. But you know, when you come into it exactly right, you're not going to get a second chance at it. You know, it takes a fair bit out of you. You have to be absolutely peak. Look at these dogs are doing at the moment. Pastana doing 28.99. Dogs doing 29.10, 29.20 for fun. I mean, a dog that's not even is even 99% right is not going to survive in a Derby like this.
I think as well, yeah, I would agree. I think if you look at the stats anyway, we haven't had a back-to-back winner of the Irish Derby, I think, since back in the 50s when Timothy Chubb O'Connor's great greyhound did the 3 in a row. I think it's difficult. Ballymac Vic appeared in 3 Derby finals.
Not through the Tire Sugar Ray around the same time.
Yeah, and there was a number of them, and even Ballymac Matt, who won in 2015, came back in 2016, and I think just like Linson Bucko just wasn't himself. Would it be that when you go through 6 rapid rounds usually of a Derby, if you're going to win it, it's pretty tough probably on the greyhound, and to try and rediscover that sparkle and that fire second time round is pretty difficult, and a lot have tried it and nobody has succeeded.
It'll be interesting to see if he does make the journey to England, Lenson Bocco. Of course, he is English owned, well, with the exception of Austin Gleeson, who would very much suggest he's the Clare man rather than Englishman, one of the joint owners. But he has been back for the English Derby. It'd be interesting to see if they do turn up with him and if he can produce his best form again. Would
you back him in at the moment? Like you'd just like to see a bit more, wouldn't you?
Certainly, I certainly would. There's no question he hasn't. The sparkle hasn't been quite there. He did show signs of promise in the second round, but just wasn't there in the third round again. He missed the kick, edging inwards, looked like a dog that wanted the inside. Found himself in third off the second bend, but with Toolmaker Sydney on his tail, he was never going to hold him down the back straight because he is a bit special from 2 to 3, no question about it. We'll move on. There is one greyhound, of course, remaining in the Derby that has been in the Derby final before, and that's Clona Blaze, doing it well for the old stagers, Mert. This fellow, he's 4 years of age, like New in Leicester. The two of them are still there, running very well for Graham Holland. Be interesting to see if we could manage to get a 4-year-old dog in the Derby decider.
Yeah, it would. I was thinking maybe Ballymac Anton might make it, but unfortunately he's gone out with. But I think, with Graham Holland, you can never take anything for granted. And Clona Blaze running well and could not be ruled out at this stage. Obviously has the experience, knows the track well. He's a good tracker. He's got a lot of early pace as well. And I wouldn't rule him out. He certainly is in the reckoning. He'd be in my top 6 or 7, if you were to narrow it down. And I think he's one that one has to keep an eye on if anything happens to the more fancied ones. Well, certainly he could take it up and win it, and it wouldn't be a big surprise, Ian.
Tommy, the fact that he is one of the early paced trackers in the Derby, that may nearly actually stand against him, because he is going to struggle to lead the likes of a Pastana and a Ewan Taylor and, maybe the likes of a Glengar Bale also. So if he does find himself second or third off the opening corner, the likes of a Clona Blaze may just struggle to get through.
I might argue that he's not quite as specialist in early pace as those are. It'll be interesting to see what happens if hopefully it won't happen, but if Ewan Taylor or if Pastana misses the kick, it'll be interesting to see what they can do. Maybe they have the pace of the third bend that can get them in front and do enough to qualify. Clona Blaze, look, I think we talked about this before. I don't think a dog with 17 in his birthday is going to win a Derby. Never mind the dog that's 16, and he's August 16, Clone of Blaze. Just the dogs we mentioned a minute ago, your Tyre Sugar Rays and the like, and your Ballymacmats and that. Like, they're just fantastic to see them, that they can come back and produce at this level. If he doesn't win another race, Clone of Blaze, what a fantastic dog he's been. Like, he's been to a Derby final, he won an Easter Cup, he's won 17 races. He won a Derby heat at 4 years of age. I mean, that's fairly impressive, and he's doing 29.48. That's pretty close to what his best ever run was. Yes, the track is quicker now than it was maybe 2 years ago, but no, he's a fabulous dog. I don't see him winning the Derby, but I tell you, he has a good draw on Saturday night. I know Ballymacwild is in the racing, great name that, but I mean, there's not a lot of early pace on the outside. He's a superb draw in 6. I could see him qualifying for the semi-finals. After that, who knows?
Yes, he's nearly one of the best drawn dogs of the entire quarterfinals.
I'd say it's between him and Ballymac Cooper. They're the two to me that stood out. Just looking at the draw straight away, you go, yeah, look, Clone of Blaze has the early pace to lead around the outside, probably lead the entire race, in fact. And Ballymac Cooper would have 2 dogs inside and both heading towards the rails early. He's going to get the run of all time.
Seems we've lost Mert for a moment. We'll continue just for a moment or two and hope that Mert can reconnect. Just looking at the my list of topics to get through. The Shelbourne Park atmosphere obviously isn't there this year. Will it make a big difference? How, from someone that's looking in from the sidelines, has it come across on television, of course, on Saturday night with Racing Post TV covering it, or via whatever manner you would normally watch it, Tommy? How's it been for you?
It's been a bit bizarre. I've look at, I suppose in the last while, because I'm so far away from home, I've been watching Derby, early rounds of Derbies from whatever vantage point I can get them, maybe up in Curraheen Park or wherever. But it's all a bit bizarre. I do a lot of horse racing at the moment, and I mean, it really struck home when we went to Galway, and there was this huge track, and there might have been a couple of hundred people in total between everybody, and a lot of those were asked to move off the track as soon as the horses had run. It's a really bizarre atmosphere, and I suspect it's the same for you in Shelbourne Park. It might have an effect, and it might be positive in the sense of your new Taylor or your Pastana, where there won't be the Derby roar that might affect even costing that half a length of traps. There might be the difference between winning and losing. Maybe that's what it'll be. But I mean, it's not. I always feel a little bit conflicted about this with horse racing and greyhound racing. That it's brilliant that we're still going ahead. That's key, because if we weren't going ahead, we may never go ahead again in both codes. But it's a funny situation. It's hard to really enjoy it like you would. I mean, you've seen the scenes in Shelbourne Park after Derby final. You know them better than anybody. You're stuck in the middle of it trying to get an interview, and there's just people jumping on top of people and just have, they're really celebrating it. The Rural Hawaii dog comes to mind. It's some of the best celebrations in Shelbourne in the last number of years. But I don't know. I mean, it's great that it's going ahead, but as far as I'm concerned, it'll be a little bit bizarre. I'd like to get there. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get into the track, even just to be there. I mean, for a Derby final. So if we had a new Taylor, a dog like that, or a Pastana, obviously. I mean, I'm a bit of a purist. It's all right that you'll have a good race and an exciting finish or something will come from off the pace, but you'd love to see the dogs that have done the exceptional times and really set the standard in the Derby to go and do it in the Derby final. That's what I'd like. It might make for much fun for bookies and people who haven't backed anti-post, who are looking at short prices, maybe Derby final night. I don't worry about that sort of thing. I haven't had a bet. Likelihood is I won't be having a bet, but I would just love to see a really good winner of the Derby. That's what we want.
Yeah, that's always what we want. And in fairness to Shelbourne Park, given the very nature of the place, that in recent years, the best dog has often risen to the top. The likes of Law Hill Blake, of course, was perhaps one of the most dominant Derby winners. Mert alluded to College Causeway earlier in the year, one of the few greyhounds in recent times that has gone through a Derby unbeaten. And we're looking forward to a strange Derby, of course. And if there is nobody on track for the Derby final, it really will be an eerie experience. But thankfully, I'll be on hand. I'll be in the commentary box. Just saying, Mert, that I wandered through the stadium on Saturday night just before racing, and even the fact that handlers don't even come on this side of the track. They stay in their vans. They watch from the far side of the track, socially distant, of course. It really does make for a very eerie experience. It's like going to I remember going to unofficial trials as a young fella, and you'd be the only one in let's say the old Harold's Cross with whoever you were trialing with, and it was a strange experience. You can hear every little sound, the hair, the motions of you can nearly hear the grass blowing in the infield. A very strange experience, but as you say, may just suit the dogs that are dependent on that little bit of the edge. As you say, Pastana, he showed on Saturday night, he went a little bit of traps, but steadied himself, and he's more of a reactionary greyhound than he is an instinctive breaker. I think he's one that nearly waits for you can hear the mechanism. I think he's one that waits for that. And perhaps it's going to suit a dog like that, Mert, where not as many going to be making mistakes, let's say, if they get to a Derby final, because it just is so eerily quiet.
Yeah, it's completely, as you said, it's such a strange year. And all around the country, at all the meetings and all the stadiums, they're feeling that. You see, I suppose the final, the famous roar, the Derby roar, that was part and parcel of it. But only for the online stuff, we'd be in big trouble, because only, the anointed few like yourself can actually see the action and can actually report on it. And I think it's going to suit, because the roar is not going to be there, it could suit a greyhound who might be intended to be of the nervous disposition. And I think Pastana, look at the moment, if you were to give me a grand, which I know you're not.
I'd consider it, but I don't.
Well, I would put it on Kerry to beat the Dubs. But listen, if I had a grand, I certainly would. It would have to be Pastana, and I'd have a small saver on Ballymac Wild. But yeah, Pastana. It's very hard to see how a greyhound who beat the 29-second barrier is going to get beaten, particularly in the strange year that it is. And it could be a very strange year, because Pastana, and it reminds me, and it's probably Derby related, and I should say it, to pass on sympathies to the late Thomas Moore, who died here in Ballybunion within the last 2 weeks, because he bred Lartigue Note, who won the English Derby in 1989. And the connection here is that he actually he was brought to Ireland then for the Irish Derby, and he broke his hock in trialling in Shelbourne, so he never ran. But he was trained by Ger McKenna. And of course, it's Ger McKenna's son Owen who actually trains Pastana. So my mystic qualities tell me that Pastana is going to just love what's going on. The only thing is, he's got to if he gets to the semi-final and the cream comes to the top, I think he's the quickest, he's the cleverest. I think he's going to win. I just would be a small bit nervous the next night. Why? I don't know. I'm just a small bit nervous of him. He's drawn in heat 3, and he's got Ballymac Cooper on his outside. Now, Dear Jet Sydney, we know him from Tralee. He's got pretty good early pace as well. I don't think, I was going to call him the Bald Eagle after myself, but no, the Bold Eagle, I don't think he can do it. 29.60 is his best.
In fairness, there's a couple of Bald Eagles on my screen here.
Thanks, Ian.
But in fairness,
no, the tide is not got fully out. Hang on a second. You know what I say about ball men? Scooby Princess and Wakey Wakey Kino on the inside. I can't see. I think all the action in that heat will be on the outside. 4, 5, 6. I think Pastana obviously will win it. I think Ballymac Cooper will probably do enough to finish maybe 3rd and get in there. Deirdre Sydney could be 2nd. Unless something unforeseen happens, I think the action is going to be in the outside, and I think Pastana will get through to the last 12, to the semis, and after that, he's going to be very hard to beat, Ian. I mean, when you look at his sectionals, when you look at the way he's running, if you look at the way he's pinging, and as you say, he seems to wait, and then, but the explosive pace he has from the traps, and if that doesn't desert him, who's going to come? And originally, I thought he mightn't even stay the 550, but I mean, he has proved that he does. It'll take a good greyhound to come from behind Pestana if he gets the type of start that he's got the last 2 rounds of the Derby. And although one of Neely O'Connell's came within a length of him, didn't he? In the
Razzle Peaky chased him in the opening. Very impressive.
Yeah. And Neelis is a good man to prepare a greyhound. So I suppose, look, there's no such thing as a certainty in sport, and we're not saying that Pestan is a certainty, but so far he's been the one that's caught the eye. He's the most impressive, and again we will claim him in Kerry. Ina will have you know, right? Because obviously Desi Grace, our local accountant, owns him, and he was bred by Liam Dowling. So we are claiming him regardless of the fact that it's Owen McKenna that trains him. So we have 4 now in the left in the Derby, and they are all Kerry. It's just, when you're Kerry, it's just like football or any other sport. To be Kerry, as John B. Keane said, is special, and it's an honour. And it's the same for the Greyhounds. And our neighbours from Cork, Tommy, look, we respect you, we get on with you, but you'll never be as good as us.
Now, in fairness, Mert, Tommy's from the mean streets of Temple Oak, so like Cork can claim all they like. I grew up 500 yards down the road from him. I know exactly where he's from. But in fairness to Kerry, the last time you actually had success in Dublin in September was Ballymacmat, isn't that right? Because there's been no real success in the football field in that time, has there?
Hang on a second. We have 37 All-Irelands and one hurling one, which is 38. And the Dubs haven't still cut off it, despite going through a Leinster Championship where nobody else plays except themselves. And, they train morning or evening, they get fed, they get their meals. It's a professional setup. But anyway, listen, I have to tell you this, though, that Liam Dowling tells a very good story about winning the Derby in 2015. It was the night before the Kerry-Dublin 2015 All-Ireland, and he was absolutely thrilled, obviously, that Ballymacmat won. So then when he was walking down O'Connell Street the following afternoon, when he went to the match, disappointed, obviously, so he said he didn't know whether to laugh or to cry, and all the Kerry supporters, obviously, were gutted that they had lost to the Dubs again, and he was delighted that Ballymac had won and he was being congratulated, but he couldn't actually celebrate that until a few days later, till he came back to the halfway bar, and then they had a session. They
made up for it then, I'm sure.
They made up for it.
Tommy, Mert has been alluding to the Tipperary trained greyhound Pestana there for a few moments, and we were speaking about the draw, and whereas the draw on Saturday night coming isn't ideal, it is made easier by the fact that Dearjet Sydney and 4 will dive inwards. Is the problem for Pestana going forward is it perhaps the night he gets 3 or 2 and he has the likes of a BoyleSports Extra on his outside? Is that where we are more concerned than Saturday night, where he should get the little bit of room to race in the opening yards if he does hit the lids?
Look, the draw isn't too bad in the sense that Dearjet Sydney will be going straight into the rails, as you said. He probably even has a little bit of wiggle room here, whereas if he does a 3:38, say, it's almost a length behind what he did the last 2 nights, he'll still have the time to get to the front before the bend, because he has that bit of a pace edge over the other greyhounds. I think it's fine because Dearjet will be going straight in. It'll give him a little bit of space, so even if he can afford to miss it very slightly, I wouldn't like to see him miss it too much. I've said already, I'm going to contradict myself here slightly. I said already a dog with 17 in the Derby won't, or in their name, or in their birthdays, won't win the Derby. But Ballymac Cooper is the best drawn dog of the weekend. And if you were to have a bet, if you would ask me to have a bet outright now, I'd obviously be interested in Pestana at 7-2. I think it's still quite reasonable. But Ballymac Cooper each way, because that is the draw of all time. He's going to have the outside to himself. He did 29.10 2 runs ago. Pestana will do well to do 29.10 this weekend. To do those sort of runs. And Ballymac Cooper is a strong dog, as well as a dog that can go up. He's a strong dog. He's got the draw of all time. But I look at, to be honest about it, I said my cards on the table. I like to see the dogs who do the special runs continue to do them and go and win a Derby, because they're the ones we'll remember. Geez, he was a special dog. College Causeway was sensational because he came from behind, and there was always a little bit of excitement in watching him run. Will he get a gap? Will he not get a gap? Your father's commentary in the final. I mean, people remember that and they will remember that for donkey's years, because it was fantastic. It really kind of brought it alive. But the dog contributed to that, obviously, in the sense that he just had that exciting way of running. Pastana, if you ask at the start of a derby, you say, do you want to back a dog that is very strong and can do 29.10, or do you want to back a dog who has to break and can also do 29.10? You back the strong dog, because you think over 6 runs it's going to. There will be a time that every dog will face a little bit of trouble, have a little bit of a missed break, or a little bit of trouble at the bend or whatever, that have to overcome some sort of adversity.
It's often happened at this round, actually, quarter-final stage. I remember back to Bypass Byway, he produced an incredible run to qualify in third. Ballyan Sim looked dead and buried the year he won the Derby in the quarter-finals, but battled on to grab third. It's probably all about qualification, but as you say, you want the brilliant dogs to come through and be there on Derby final night.
Yeah, like I'd be quite happy if Pastana did a 29.40, popped out, maybe not the brilliant early, not the whatever, and did a 29.40 run and came back, won the heat or finished second in the heat, and was, if Owen had given him, I know it's a dangerous thing to do, but if he had given him a kind of a quietish week, and sense of just let him go through his paces for the week and just hope that he's fresh enough. That
Owen describes the dog, I don't think he needs to. I think he's very much a dog that recovers very quickly. He describes him as the dog that he loves a routine. You let him out first, you feed him first, and as soon as he's fed, he has his little run around and he goes back in, sticks his legs in the air and just has a chill out. He says he's just that type of dog.
Well, hopefully we'll get to see that over the next 3 rounds. But isn't it the beauty of the Derby that it's not straightforward? It is 6 rounds, and you have to produce 6 times. It's like in the colour money, where you say, well, 9 ball, you can put 8 great shots and miss the 9 and lose the frame. It's the same thing with this. 3 brilliant runs so far, haven't won a Derby. If he doesn't win this Derby, the sad reality is that we'll probably forget about the dog for a while. Yes, he did 28.99, and that will be, until somebody dips lower, he'll be in the record books. But I'd hate for a greyhound that good not to go and seal the deal and go win the Derby.
We've spoken a lot about the top of the market there, Mert. Is there one down the bottom of the market? There are a few there are a few potential fairy tales there. Like, I note the likes of a Rope Walk Boy. He was a local runner in Shelbourne Park, but he's running out of his skin. You've Mina Miracle from Michael Core up in Cullen Island. She's running out of her skin also. Frankie's Jet has been sneaking through each round, running very well. But you have a number of those type of greyhounds that are still there. Is there one that in particular would be a great story? One that down the bottom of the market that could get to a Derby final, and who knows? You never know then. But is there something there that's really catching your eye in terms of imagination regards a fairy tale story?
Well, not so much towards the bottom of the market, Ian, but there is one whose price, I think, about 16 to 1 or maybe 20 to 1 actually. BoyleSports Extra is a greyhound, I think, that's improving the whole time. And I actually am going to predict that he could very well beat New Taylor on next Saturday night. He's drawn in 4. He's been improving the whole time. He is roughly a 340 dog away, which is quick enough. I think he's very clever. He's a clever tracker, and he will wait and he will move when he thinks he's not going to get involved, I would imagine, in any sort of crowding unless there's major trouble. And I think BoyleSports Extra, I know it's the sponsor's greyhound, and John Boyle would probably love to win. He finished
runner-up, of course, last year with BoyleSports King. I don't think anyone would begrudge John Boyle. He's been such a great supporter of the game. I don't think anyone would begrudge him a chance at Derby glory.
Absolutely, and I think Paul Hennessy as well, who trains the greyhound, I think it would be great for BoyleSports Extra, because BoyleSports have remained loyal to greyhound racing and the amount of money that they've put in this year to produce the type of racing that we've had since the Derby started. It's been one of the best derbies that I can remember in recent years anyway, quality-wise. And I think BoyleSports Extra might be the flying the ointment, and I think he could run very well. And when you're commentating the final, of the final couple of strides of Heat 4, and BoyleSports Extra gets up to beat New Taylor, you can say, God, Mystic Mort told me that on Monday and I didn't believe him, you know.
That might stick. We're just going to wrap it up now in a few moments, lads. Tommy, just one dog that stands out for you as regards the storylines you're keeping an eye on.
Well, I love from our local point of view. I love Kieran Lynch to win. He's obviously training Mustang from Kieran's shown the last couple of years how good he is with greyhounds. He's just one of those trainers who was going up the ranks quite quickly. He will win a Derby in time.
And a fellow Liverpool supporter like yourself.
Hey, it's all plus points. No, just an interesting point. I'm just going back to BoyleSports Extra last week. Just looking at the sectionals. It was all won early by Taylor. That's hardly rocket science now that I don't need to be telling anybody that. It was all won early. But they both did to the sectionals too, as you famously quoted in on Racing Post, Mike Clockman. Mike Clockman and your Clockman might be the same man. But they both did 6 seconds. They both did 6 seconds down the back last week. And BoyleSports Extra was 11 spots quicker from the third bend home than New Inn Taylor. New Inn Taylor's clock to the third bend was phenomenal. Actually have it here. I think I have it here. He did 11:40, which was 3 spots faster than Pastana did when he was breaking the track record. That'll tell you that. But the only issue with that is, right, if both of them get to the final, New Inn Taylor and Pastana get to the final, there can only be one winner, because if New Inn Taylor obviously been drawn a wide seat, will be on the outside of Pastana all the time. They both bring their A game. Even if he's 3-4 spots quicker down to the third bend, he's not going to get around Pastana, because Pastana's going to be inside him. You know how crucial that would be, the difference of a length or length and a half or 2 lengths over the space of 550 yards. I hope they get there, because then we can talk about this properly before the final.
Well, we'll have a chance before then. Lads, I can't let you go without just giving me a one-word answer. Well, perhaps it could be a 2-word answer. What's going to win the Derby?
Well, I suppose I better go first as the Kerryman, and since we have 4 greyhounds still left, and we will still have 4 in the semi-finals, I can foresee. I think I'm going to move my train of thought, and I'm going to give you a sporting selection. Not very. It reminds me of Shane, actually, the son, Shane Dowling, because when he was young, he was quite wild as a footballer. He was as big then. Well, he wasn't as strong, but he was big then, and he used to play at full forward.
In Dublin, we call him a big unit.
Yeah, well, he was a big unit, and he used to play with the schools team, and he was very, very effective. So you put him in full forward, and just to lob the ball into him. And I always remember there'd be 4 or 5 defenders sort of hanging off his togs as he went up. But he gave up the football and took up the greyhound racing. Anyway, you want to hear my selection? I'd love to go for Cooper, but out for 6 months. I'm not too sure. I think Ballymac. He's been in my head since the Juvenile Classic here. He's been in my head since the start of the Derby. So look, an each way selection. I think he's 8-1, I say, by the sponsors. They're thereabouts. And I think he'll make the final. Ballymac. I'm liking him more and more. I heard you saying in commentary one night, and you are a very, very good commentator, but we miss your dad. I know it's just over a year, and from all the people in Kerry, we miss your dad, and we miss him so much, and always sends out my memory. My Derby memory will be College Causeway, where he came from, and all you'd hear your dad saying was, "Here comes the Causeway," and that will be one of the great commentaries. It's like the and the mayor's getting up, you know, Peter O'Sullivan's in the 85 Gold Cup, yeah. But so my sympathies there. But Ballymac Wild, right. You said in a word, I made it.
That was a couple more than a word, but sure, not to worry. Tommy, you have about 5 seconds. Yeah,
Pastana wins, and Ballymac Cooper, because he's going to be a semi-finalist, he's double figures. You have to go each way, Ballymac Cooper, but Pastana to win it, pure class.
Lads, there's plenty of racing left in this Derby. We'll be back with Talking Derby next Monday. I hope you've enjoyed this first instalment, and lots more topics to discuss in a week's time. But for now, enjoy the remainder of the Derby. It's going to be a cracker.